Good morning. How's everyone doing? Captain Chaos, did you know that school bus safety is crucial for young students?
Absolutely, Sergeant Be Safe. We must protect our little heroes from any danger.
And here comes Maya. She's getting ready to go to school. Oh no! Look out, everyone!
Uh-oh, that driver didn't stop for the school bus.
Fear not. He's not going to do that in my town.
It's time for some superhero intervention.
Get him, Sergeant Be Safe.
Captain Chaos, let's go get him! Sergeant Be Safe, time to power up!
He committed a terrible offense by passing a school bus with its stoplights on. He will need to prepare to face the consequences.
Stop that car. Get out!
I'm sorry. I didn't realize the lights were on. I'll be more careful next time.
Listen, the safety of our children is of the utmost importance. Always be vigilant and attentive on the road.
And remember, with great driving comes great responsibility.
Thank you, Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos for keeping us safe. Have a great day. I'm off to school.
Maya, you have a great day at school too. I'm glad everyone's safe and everything worked out. And as for this driver, he won't be driving reckless for a long time. In fact, you might see him crawling around, going from place to place. Drivers, remember, it's that time of year again. School buses cannot be passed if the stop sign or the lights are illuminated. You could lose your license for up to a year. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Welcome to Black and Blue, the podcast that's just for you. We bring solutions to everyday problems. We are here to humanize the badge. By interviewing first responders and discussing their trainings, experiences, and publications. Black and Blue airs weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in.
Let's go start the show. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are live. Thank you for tuning in to another weekly episode of Black and Blue. It's the podcast where we go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And when we go live with a special guest, and he's in the background right now, and I'm going to bring him forward here in a minute. But we go live and we talk about law enforcement and first responders, whether they're rookie, whether they're seasoned, whether they're retirees, and we talk about their training, their experiences, and their publications. And today we're going to talk about experiences and publications. But first and foremost, I'm your host. I'm Coach Clay. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker. And thank you guys for tuning in. All right, make sure you guys get those likes up. Likes keep the algorithm going. And on that note, we are streaming on 5 different platforms right now. We're streaming on 2 platforms on Facebook, 2 platforms on YouTube, and 1 platform on LinkedIn, okay? So this is an interactive live, so therefore I can't see who's on here. If you're looking for a shout out, put your name and where you're from in the comment section, and we'll get that shout out that you're looking for. If you have a question or a comment, make sure you put that in the comment section as well. Put it on the screen, and we'll acknowledge it to the best of our ability, all right? This platform, this show, is here to humanize the badge. We discuss current trends. We discuss current topics on mental health, addiction, on community policing, so many wonderful topics that are discussed on here. So if you're looking to get into law enforcement or becoming a first responder, this is your platform right here. If you're in the middle of law enforcement or being a first responder and you're looking to see how other individuals do it or what other experiences are, this is your platform. If you're retired and you know what the other side of the rainbow looks like and you still want have a little bit of toe in the water, you got your toe in the water, this is your platform to see how things are done, all right? Again, this platform is sponsored by One Way Publishing. One Way Publishing is workwithclee.com. You see that in the comments section. It's in the description box. You're looking to be a voiceover for Sergeant Be Safe like you saw in the beginning of this podcast, that's your ticket. If you're looking to be on the show, that's your ticket. Check the website out and put your information in there. All right. If you're looking also for One Way Publishing, that's your ticket. The One Way Publishing is the book publishing company where their motto is they can turn a mere thought and turn it into a book that's bought. I wrote 5 books myself. They're behind me. Other patrons have come through and they've gotten their books. They're able to get done fiction, nonfiction, biography, cookbooks, children's books, whatever you can think of, they can get it done. So make sure you check them out. All right. But I've said enough about that. I'm going to let the commercial describe it. And then we're going to jump into the interview moments after that. So stand by.
Publishing. Have you ever wanted to explain something, tell a story, or leave a piece of you behind? Have you ever wanted to write your own book, but not specifically know how to do it? Well, get ready. One Way Publishing's here. We can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. People need to learn from you. They need to hear that story. Kids need to read that book. Imagine if you wrote your own children's book and get to read it to your kids. Here at One Way Publishing, we can get your fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, instructional, what have you, done. All at a reasonable price and definitely a reasonable time frame. And if you don't believe me, ask Sergeant Be Safe. He's working on his right now. He's definitely writing the best chapter of his life. Make sure you check out his cartoon skits that air on the podcast Black and Blue.
As Sergeant Be Safe said, that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And there it is, a commercial for One Way Publishing. So make sure you guys check that out. The website's in the comment section and it's in the description box below. All right. But without further ado, the reason you guys are here. Some of you may know our guests, others of you may not, but we're going to get to learn about him and hear about his experiences today. He's another author, ladies and gentlemen. He's worked over 27 years in the field of law enforcement, and he wrote the book, again, here, put this on the screen, those of you that don't know, What Doesn't Kill You. All right. And he started off as an EMT and he trains in the law enforcement for, like I said, he switched over to law enforcement with over 27 years. The last 5 years of his career, he has shared and developed and experienced over 130 individuals' shared lives with his experiences there. He's wrote the book I just put on the screen, What Doesn't Kill You. And
has also been diagnosed with complex PTSD. With that, he's able to be a peer support specialist and also a peer support trainee. And if I butchered anything, I'm pretty sure he will correct me, and I will bring him to the stage right now. Eric, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for making yourself available and coming on the show. It's not easy, for one, to write a book. It's not easy to live the life of law enforcement and a first responder, and then to go ahead and share those experiences on the platform. So I thank you for making yourself available and coming on the platform.
Thank you. And you didn't butcher anything, by the way. It was quite impressive. Yeah, it's funny. You know, we write police reports, and I thought, man, I wrote about 1,000 police reports easily. Writing a book, that's going to be it's the complete opposite of everything they train you to do.
Exactly.
Not easy.
Yes, and I know that. Well, we'll get to it further on in the discussion. I don't want to give too many things away. Before we get started in the meat and potatoes of it, can you tell the audience about who you are and a little bit about your experiences? What got you into law enforcement?
I originally thought I was going to stay in the medical field, and EMT was the start. I was looking at nurse practitioner or physician assistant schools in California. Mm-hmm. And when I was younger, I read Joseph Wambaugh books, like The Choir Boys, and Serpico, not Wambaugh, but another author. And it always rung with me. There was just something in the back of my head, always picking at the back of my mind. That would be great, but I thought, I can't do that. I'm not like cop material. And, you know, the 70s and the 80s was very, very different. And I grew up in New York, New Jersey, so law enforcement out there was kind of notorious. And I heard about the reserve program at Salinas, little gang town in the middle of California, where the movie Blood In, Blood Out, about the Nuestra Familia, that's kind of where the area where they got their start. And I thought, well, that's a no-brainer. I could volunteer, play cop, weekend warrior, and see if I like it, and maybe kind of do both. So I did both for 2-3 years. From 2 years, 93 to 95. I was a volunteer officer and working full-time EMT. And then I put myself through the academy. I decided, this just being outdoors, it's too much fun. This is just the excitement of it, helping people in a different way than in an ER where you're confined. And I went full-time in 95. But it was kind of a burnout agency. It was horrendously busy. Huge gang problem. We talked about earlier, generations of gangs. So I bounced around a little bit, went to San Jose. I'm from the East Coast. My wife grew up in LA. All her family's on the West Coast. And we're like, let's try the East Coast, because California was getting very expensive. That was when you couldn't. A lot of guys were living in their cars or in RVs in the parking lot on the weekends. Some would fly back home to other states on their days off. And I just had a baby. So we're like, let's see what the East Coast is like. You get a take-home car. You're allowed to have a discount on your rent. There's perks that make up for the lower pay. And my family was out there, but wife and kids did not like it. It was not a fit. Southern Florida, at least back then, was not a family friendly. It was more of a strip club, mafia town. When my wife saw the strip club across the street from the elementary school where we dropped the daughter off, she's like, okay, all done. I miss my family. We're going back to California. So I settled down in the sheriff's office. I started off in the jails for 5 years. And I thought I knew police work. I was a bit cocky. Man, any listener out there, if you have a department that allows you to work the jail and patrol, because some are COs, we were deputies in the jail and deputies outside the jail, do it. My best training I ever got was working those jails. It sucks. Yeah, I don't know if you're allowed to curse here.
We're good.
But it's an education that can save your life. And make great cases for you and really buy you into the communities, because I built a strong rapport with a lot of the inmates who had sway and pull on the streets. And then I went to patrol. I went through some critical incidents, some bad stuff, and as I talk about in the book a little bit, I kind of got that burnout, that retired on duty started creeping up on me. And I always swore I wouldn't be one of those lumps in a seat, just handling whatever dispatch sent my way. And I thought, what about transit? I remember transit in New York and the subways. And you don't go into homes. You don't have to deal with traffic crashes and dead bodies, because in California, deputies, at least our department, we were deputy coroners too. So we had to investigate all dead bodies.
Okay.
Dead body, and it wasn't what they call an attended death. You had to go start the process for the coroner before they would send a deputy to come pick the body up.
Oh, wow.
And I know I had friends who loved working in the coroner's unit. Man, that ain't me. I never got used to it. It was the most disgusting. It was too much. So I thought, well, if I go to transit, I don't have to deal with that anymore. The pay is phenomenal. The perks were phenomenal. They even gave out bonuses when ridership went up. I thought win-win. And they have a foot patrol in San Francisco, so I'll work off some of the pounds. This is what I had in my head. Cops, we could talk ourselves into just about anything.
You can find the bright side, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So the last 6 years of my career, I went to Bay Area Rapid Transit, which covers now it's about 6 counties, 50 cities. It stretches from San Francisco across the Bay to the East Bay. And it's just a really different environment depending what district you're in. But I settled down in the San Francisco stations, which was all foot patrol 2-man teams. And we covered, each team had 3 stations to cover, and 450,000 commuters during the peak before COVID hit. And it was it was a different experience that I was not used to. We had 8,000 homeless crammed into 49 square miles. Most have addiction and mental health issues. And you're in a crowded platform with literally thousands of people, because one train, full crush load train, can open the doors and there comes 1,000 people right out the doors. And you have something breaking bad, a fight, stabbing, a domestic, people shooting up dope, and you have to make your way through those crowds. So it was a learning curve. And that's how I eventually got into what I wrote about. Was I started digging down into the homeless issue. I approached it, cops, we hate the touchy-feely stuff, and they talk about replacing us with social workers. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to be the best little social worker they've ever seen. I'm going to take they trained me to be an investigator. I'm going to be an investigator. I'm going to go out, I'm going to be a detective, and I'm going to figure out, why are these people homeless? Why are they shooting up dope in the middle of platforms and on stairs? Why are they doing what they're doing? Let's get to the root of this and let's solve this case. And that was the rabbit hole that I fell into for about 5 years, and came out of it with a little more trauma to add to all the other stuff.
Right.
That's basically it in a nutshell, without taking up the whole show.
No, that's fine. Yeah, you're going on. You answered a lot of the questions before I can ask them, so I appreciate that, definitely. And I know what actually your book here, and I got your website scrolling below for those of you that want to see more or learn more, or want to reach out. Where exactly can you order the copy of your book from?
It's on Amazon, and Audible should be out any day now. We're just waiting to hear back.
Gotcha.
And if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's a free download. We wanted to make it, we made it a low price because we want to get the message out there. I see you have our nonprofit. So in California, I started a nonprofit to fill in the gaps of where things fell through, because San Francisco spends $2 billion, with a B as in boy, $2 dollars. And for all of that, they have one failed team and resource after another. So I started a nonprofit. My wife took over and ran it to kind of fill in the gaps, to do what needed to be done, to stop playing games and actually get the work done, because he realized it's a lot of money making going on behind the scenes.
Right.
So now we're in Georgia. We started up again under Georgia with the Veritas Foundation. So we're still in the process of building it, serving those in need, basically.
And I'm sorry.
I was saying the proceeds from the book help us fund the nonprofit.
I believe I see you had a passion for it, because in your book you also had you explained how by your office you would often keep supplies for those who were homeless or in need, that they knew at least if they needed, strangely enough to me, an item that is often needed that you said in your book was socks. And others would know that they could safely come by, go by your office or at the area that you had designated at the department for them to pick up whatever supplies they needed and be on their way. So it shows that the level of commitment and the seriousness on how much you were involved in it, being involved in helping those who were homeless or addicted throughout the process of your career while working transit.
Yeah, thank you. Socks and underwear are golden. We had a young girl, they actually wrote a news article on her from Utah, and we were helping her. And during in California, you have 2 seasons. You have dry and sunny, and then it rains for a few months. So it was during the winter rainy season.
Okay.
It was cold out, and we found her on the floor going into hypothermia, shaking. All she had was a thin shirt. And she was in a program, a $6 million program that I got her into. And for the $2 billion, I looked at her and I asked my partner, I said, okay, she needs some dry clothes. She's going to die out here. Very young. She's like early 20s. And there was nothing, because all services are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So if you're homeless and in need, if it's 6 p.m., if it's a Saturday, sorry, make an appointment for the week. And that was infuriating to me. I couldn't believe for all that money. So again, to thumb my nose at the system, I said, you know what? I'm going to get some clothes from the guys I work with. And when I run across somebody like that, because we went out, we bought our clothes at one of the Salvation Army locations. But we decided, let's just keep some emergency stuff around. And then it grew from there. And you know how cops are, coming in and opening the cabinet, trying to get forms and supplies, and there's a box of female underwear, and they're looking at me like, dude, what is this? Don't worry about it, man. It was interesting.
Interesting enough that I remember reading also that you also had feminine products, monthly supplies that there was an excess of them, because you said individuals that are living on the streets, their body regulates to not have the cycle. So therefore, those products aren't needed. Just again, I'm like, wow, that's an eye-opening experience in itself, because that's something me, as the average person, the average cop, would not think of.
We saw it in the jails. When they would come to jail, you would hear an occasional scream, and they would come running up all upset saying, I haven't had a period in years. I can't believe I thought I didn't have them anymore. Because their bodies are so unhealthy. They're so abused. Their immensity cycle shuts down. It's probably an evolutionary self-defense mechanism to prevent problem births.
Right.
But there's a lot of physical damage and trauma they go through. And like you said, you don't realize it until you're out there in the middle of it, what it's like. One girl explained to me, I don't know if you heard of the bell jar effect. There was a book written, famous female author. It caused some controversy at the time, because it was a female author writing about the bell jar effect of having this bell jar around you and kind of seeing everything through the lens of this jar where you can't see and hear much, like muffled earmuffs and thick glasses. And she said that's what it's like being homeless. She said, imagine waking up every day, no watch, no phone, no connection to the world. You don't know what day it is. You just know if the sun is out or if it's not out.
Wow.
You don't know what's going on. You don't know how much time has passed since the last time you talked to somebody. And it does something to the brain. I would think like maybe what POWs go through with losing their sense, their grasp or connection to reality. And it's like a bell jar. They just kind of fall and function through life, daily activities, day after day. They become zombies and they lose their will to. We need that routine. We need the discipline. I know in retirement, especially with the complex PTSD, that's one of the hardest things for retirees is you lose your purpose of getting up, getting your uniform ready, picking it up in the dry cleaners, getting all your gear out, going, doing your workout before or after shift. All that routine is gone. It's just, they say, do whatever you want to do, but without that drive, without that necessity of having to do things, it all falls apart. So I can appreciate what that's like being on the street where you have no purpose in life. You don't even know where you're going to get your next meal at.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. And something else that's not even highly thought of. And speaking of complex PTSD, you also stated, I want to say page 14, don't quote me on this, I don't have it off the top of my head, on that law enforcement officials, they experience on average about 3 traumas every 6 months while working. And I actually had to stop when I read that and think about it. I'm like, wow, we really do. We deal with more serious traumas to the point where I don't know if we just get used to them, if it just becomes expected. But I know we become numb to the fact where, okay, we got another fatal car crash, you got another house fire, you got so many different things that we've dealt with that it just sits on the brain like, all right, I need to make sure, got this checked off, the perimeter set up here, started the log here. This is you're already writing the report in your mind as you're actually going through it, as opposed to actually fully taking in and comprehending how severe the situation could be and really is.
Well, what happens is you are taking in that sensory input. And as it was explained to me once after a critical incident that I'd been through, a specialty center for working with cops who've been through trauma, they said that PTSD is the difference between expectation and reality. So in that case, I heard an officer, a CHP officer, screaming 1199. And it was in the book, 1199 is a chapter. And in reality, I thought it was a downed officer on maybe a motorcycle traffic crash. When I got there, I wasn't expecting to see an officer shot in the mouth, fighting for life, and his partner and them desperately doing CPR. That difference determines the level of PTSD. Lieutenant Grossman talks about it a lot in his books. Stress inoculation, I think he calls it. So with cops, the problem is as further explained to me, is that we are constantly doing exactly what you talked about. I got reports, I got an IA coming up, I got a vacation coming up. There's always something to turn your focus towards. But in the back of your mind, this stuff is piling up. And we don't think about it. We always think worst case scenario. I haven't been in a shooting. I've been shot at, but I haven't been shot. So shouldn't have PTSD. I shouldn't have anything going on. And those situations are what they call acute PTSD. Medical term acute. It's right there, right in your face. What happens with cops, the insidious creep of complex PTSD is that secondary and complex trauma. It's that compilation of years and years, seeing a dead body, seeing somebody traumatized. If you have any empathy in you, you're feeling what they're feeling, and you're bearing those emotions. And if you're not addressing them, that stuff starts to build up in your head. And then what happens is when you retire, it starts to come out. And if you've had a rough childhood, I had some bad stuff I went through as a kid. That's what defines complex PTSD, as explained to me. It's a new diagnosis. It's not even in the DSM-5 yet. It's a brand new thing that's kind of making its rounds. I was lucky enough to come across a really good doctor who knew a lot about it. And if you've had a rough childhood and then you're exposed to trauma as an adult, you probably got complex PTSD.
Wow.
And it threw me for a loop. It hit me like a truck. I was cocky. Hey, if I don't drink, if I don't gamble, what could go wrong? Just wake up and go work out. But man, you thumb your nose at Mother Nature, and you're gonna pay a price.
So when you were diagnosed with this, were you already either in the later stages of your career, or were you already retired when you found this out?
In retirement.
Okay.
Things started to shift, and it was so subtle. I didn't really notice it. I tried looking things up to figure out what's going on with me. And I thought, we always think least case scenario. Oh, I'm just stir crazy. Oh, I'm just bored. I'm not going to work out today because I just don't feel like it. I'm retired. I'm just going to sit on the couch. And the memories start coming back, and you find yourself just daydreaming. They call that disassociation. So it started getting worse and worse.
Okay.
And it just kind of reached a peak, a breaking point, where I went in. I had to get help.
Okay. Got a few comments, and we got Seti P on here. Thank you for tuning in. He's saying good evening. Got Mary Beth Hale. Did I say that correctly? I hope so. Is giving a thumbs up. She's in here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys tag, like, and share. But right now, we're going to pause for the cause. We're going to jump right back into the interview, but we're going to take a quick commercial break for Sergeant Be Safe to give a safety tip. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Settle down, class.
Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos are here! Hooray!
I'm just here to educate and keep people safe. Hello, Maya. We heard that there were some safety concerns in this classroom.
And I thought it would be a great chance to showcase my superhero skills.
Thank you for joining us, Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos. We've been discussing school safety and the importance of education.
Absolutely, Miss Gaynor. Safety and education go hand in hand. Let's start by talking about school safety.
And remember, kids, safety doesn't have to be boring. We can make it fun and exciting.
For instance, take a look at this example, Maya. We're always told to walk in the hallways and not run.
Yes, Sergeant Be Safe. We learned that running can lead to accidents.
But what if we could run safely, like superheroes? That would be awesome.
That's right, Captain Chaos. We can use our imagination, but we must always prioritize safety.
Thank you for emphasizing the importance of safety, Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos. Now, let's talk about the importance of education.
Education is its own superpower, Maya. It opens the door to endless possibilities.
And with knowledge, you can conquer any challenge that comes your way.
I want to learn everything and become a superhero like you, Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos.
You absolutely can, Maya. Remember, education is the key to unlocking your true potential.
And remember, even superheroes never stop learning. We're always discovering new things.
Thank you, Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos, for reminding us of the importance of safety and education.
It's our pleasure, Mrs. Gaynor. And remember, kids, stay safe, keep learning, and you too will be unstoppable.
And don't forget to have a little fun along the way.
And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And we are back. Let me get this off the screen here. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're jumping right back into the interview with Eric Hofstein, the author and 27-year retiree cop in law enforcement, author of What Doesn't Kill You. And in this book, you discuss the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde effect that has taken over with anyone who I can't say anyone, with individual who may have been homeless or suffering from some sort of addiction. Have you seen this effect on? Well, I know you have because you explained it in the book, where you've dealt with someone who is extremely agitated, extremely aggressive, lethargic, so many different kinds of emotions are acting out, and then you get them treatment, or they get the service that they need, or they have the narcotic that's in their system that gives them their body the relief that the body is so looking forward to, that they turn into a different person.
Yeah, literally. When I read the book, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, when I was writing my book, it was amazing. We even quote him in one portion where he saw the same thing and wrote it into a horror tale.
Yeah.
But I first started to notice it when I was going to domestics between family members, parents and their adult children. And then in the jail, when I worked intake versus working on the module. And intake, they come in, you're fighting all the time. That's why the young guys love working intake. There's always one fight after another. There's screaming, yelling, there's stuff going on. They get on the module after about a week, like, hey, Dep, how's it going? Can I get a book? Like, this is the same guy who was fighting us in intake, or on the street was fighting us. And then at the domestics, you'd look at their rooms and where they came from, softball, little league, and now all of a sudden they're a heroin addict and smoking meth on top of it, and they're beating up their parents. I tried to understand what is that duality? Is that like what they call a split personality? And then I noticed this is something that came out of the complex PTSD. Cops who work patrol can appreciate this, is you feel dead inside. You get like an emotional numbness. You can walk up to a scene and sometimes you'll see the most horrendous things. And if you were watching a movie, you might have a reaction to it. But when you're in uniform, it's like a armor and you just don't feel anything. And I remember thinking, man, is this normal that I'm just looking at dead kids and all this other stuff going on? And I once had a 10-year-old who hung himself in a closet.
Wow.
And I'm not feeling anything.
Wow.
It was just a mild curiosity back then, but I realize now it's part of the complex PTSD, and that feeds into that duality. Well, a lot of these kids, these homeless kids, and the addicts also have PTSD, usually complex. Drugs in themselves don't make you an addict. Otherwise, everybody who's ever taken an OxyContin pill or had surgery with fentanyl, because that's what it's used in the medical field for, would be an addict. But it's something else. And I learned talking to them. Every single kid I talked to, and it was hundreds, there was something traumatic in their past. Something. Whether you knew it or not, whether they told their parents or not, something happened through anxiety, pain, a traumatic incident, and they developed that PTSD and that duality. And it's like watching two different personalities. So one day I was walking through the station, and it was in the middle of the day, heavy crowds, lots of schools, the little kids in schools going up and down the stairs. And there was two kids, two young late teens, early 20s, shooting heroin, needles out, everything, right in front of all the kids walking around them and past them. And I was just seeing red. My mouth went New York on them. There was no arrest because California, San Francisco, they didn't prosecute for that anyway. But it was, the mere possession, that's a diversion program. They have a bunch of propositions and stuff behind that. But I was pissed, and I was telling them, what the fuck are you doing in front of little children? How could you do that? These kids are seeing it, dropping your dirty needles. And he ran out. There's two of them. One came back down the stairs to me, and I was like, what do you want now? And he looked at me and he was crying, and he said, I wasn't always a piece of shit. And he walked off. And that, even to this day, it keeps ringing in my head.
Yeah.
And that duality of that, it touched on my empathy enough that curiosity built,
Mm-hmm.
and I started studying these kids in a sense. What is
Mm-hmm.
your story? I did a full interview with every homeless kid I worked with. What is your life story? What set of circumstances did you live that led you to now being on the street at 19 years old,
Uh-huh.
smoking meth, smoking
Mm-hmm.
fentanyl, doing whatever drugs comes your way? How did it get like this?
Mm-hmm.
And you start to see these patterns and you see this duality. And when I noticed that when they were high and out of control, or their mental health issues, their mental illness had a strong grip on them, and they were, we'd get the calls of the 5150 is what they call it in California. That's mental health crisis, and you
Okay.
take them involuntary treatment. We would get
Right.
a lot of 5150 calls all shift long, and you would see the same person you were talking to a week before, and now they're just like a raging animal. In the book, I talk about Joseph, one of them, who was born to a drug addict mother, and I think the father did drugs too. He never had a chance. And he told me, man, Hoff, be careful around me because when I'm off my meds, I will eat the paint off the walls.
Yeah.
Telling me that he was dangerous and literally warning me, when you see my hide,
The other side.
use officer safety.
Mm-hmm.
And that just amazed me that, wow, that this guy's telling me that to be careful. This is the guy who's warning me about him. And it started snowballing from that. I started looking into more and more of the critical type of mental health subjects that we dealt with, and what their story was, and what their illnesses were, and what the medications did. And because of that, I had some good success cases. I was able to get a young girl back to Japan after 5 years on the streets. The Japanese consulate sent us cookies. She attacked the parents, beat the parents up, but I had to fight the system to get her and a young kid from Texas, 5 years, schizophrenic, never had a diagnosis. That's all he needed was a diagnosis so he could get those meds, because he was in that revolving door of come in, get gorked out. Doctor said he's fine to release, send him back out. The mother came up and pleaded with us to help us find her son and bring him back home. We got him back home, got him medicated and back home. And this kid used to fight the police. He was hostile. Every time you even try to talk to him, the fuck you talking to me for? Get the fuck away from me. Just nasty. When he was on meds, smiling, sweet, shook my hand, thanked me. He was hugging his sisters for seeing them. It was a completely different human being.
Yeah.
And that kind of dug into me and said, man, if these guys are like this, how many of these others that I look down on or get cranky with have the same story? Some family that loves them, or when medicated and healthy, are a completely different human being.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, on the flip side of that, I know the one story, I forget her name, where you worked out, you put your neck on the line. You got, I believe that it was another cold, rainy season, or bad weather was coming. You got our place. You found her shelter when all the other shelter places were shut down for whatever reason. And you went out to go find her. When you found her, she kind of gave you the excuse, saying, I forget, I'm waiting for someone or something, but you knew she was waiting for the heroin fix to come back, so she can go ahead and re-up so she wouldn't get dope sick again. And you knew, you looked at her and you were disappointed. She could see your disappointment. And as you're walking off in disappointment, she does yell out, sorry, but it's kind of emotionless, but feelings are involved. However, the fix is so strong, it had such a strong hold over her that it kept her there in that state, in that situation, longer than she actually needed to be.
Yeah, that's where the burnout comes from. You put so much effort into helping people. Earlier in the book, I talk about some other people I helped, and I was riding that high of, yay, I fixed her. She's going to be happy and healthy and get married and have kids and ride off into the sunset. And you don't understand relapse and recovery, and how relapses will keep happening. It takes 7 years from the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from the day you go into detox to the day you're living your life what I call it normally, is 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's stages in there, and I did not understand that. I did not use. I thought I was had empathy because I was doing so much to help them, but I wasn't listening to her. And I had put so much of my own time into helping her, even my own money out of my own pocket to try to save this. She was very young, early 20s, from a very upper class community, just had horrible parents. And a lot of trauma, and she was sexually assaulted on the streets, and they get into that cycle of shame, guilt, and self-medicating that new trauma. And when I found a shelter for her, I finally got, and it was a good one. It was a brand new facility, and they had a program, the step program, where they could get her into the next level of a woman's place, and then an SRO, single resident occupancy, and there was stages that she could get into to never come back to the streets. And I was like, I did it finally. Everything, the planets have aligned. I went running out of lineup. I remember to find her, and sure enough, there she was. And it devastated me. I was furious with her. I wanted to tell her, you know what, just fuck off. After everything I've done for you, you're going to tell me that you're not going to take this opportunity because you're waiting for someone. And my brain is thinking, wait, who could she be?
Exactly.
We were at the Civic Center. And Civic Centers were the black market. Anyone, you can type in San Francisco Civic Center at the plaza, and you'll see the black market there and all the homeless living on the sidewalk. And she was right there. And I realized, oh, you're waiting for your dealer or a hit, aren't you? Yeah. And as freezing cold as it was one of the coldest nights of the year. Her need to keep from going into detox, coming off her dope in the middle of a freezing cold night, getting dope sick. That was her Maslow hierarchy of needs. Her bottom level was, I need to stay not sick, and then I'll worry about not freezing to death out here.
Right.
Because once they start getting dope sick, it goes into a spiral and they can't function. They can't. Some of them end up in the ER from that. You can get seizures, all sorts of problems. So you can't function. You can't eat. You lose everything you own because people are stealing the stuff around you while you're sick. So that kind of that was a turning point for me, a waypoint in the outreach work. And I realized if I'm listening to somebody, I really got to get down on their level and feel what they're feeling and understand, why are you doing what you're doing? And not be opinionated about it. Took work. See, it sounds easy to say it, but it ain't easy, especially when you're mad.
Yeah. When you got skin in the game, yeah, absolutely. I know that there's a lot to it. In this podcast, this segment, it's very easy to assume that it's very easy because it rolls off your tongue so eloquently. However, you can tell that you've been through it. You've gone through the highs and lows of it, that you can talk about it that easy.
And I forgot, I got a message about 8 weeks ago that she died. She overdosed in a hotel, I think, be my guess, because of the COVID hotels. She didn't make it. And I really bonded with her and put in a lot of work. So in the end, I lost her.
Yeah.
And that rides with me, that, maybe if I had a little more empathy, maybe if I had listened, maybe if I had tried to do something else, I could have changed the outcome that night. And that's where more of the burnout comes in.
I can understand that. I do believe that can lead to a severe amount of burnout. However, I commend you on at least from my perspective, on the efforts that you put forth with her and others. Not everyone has enough heart or fortitude to go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And speaking of such, I know you facilitated on reuniting members that were lost. I know reading the book that you would actually go out after your shift. You would actually take your uniform off so you could walk amongst the crowd and not stand out, knowing that people will definitely avoid you while you're in uniform as you go out looking for individuals and trying to help them. Or the one family, the female who had the young son, who the son, she skipped. I think she I don't want to tell too much of the story, but she had charges under her sister's name. Her sister called in. She's like, I didn't jump do this crime, basically. And she, long story short, but it's my sister. I haven't seen her in however long, and you helped facilitate their reunion and made sure that her young son didn't see her in the current state that she was, and was able to at least develop or get a couple stages or steps beyond where she was before before they were reunited.
Yeah. Working with the families, my empathy started to build more. They would send me pictures, baby pictures, events. I would hear the stories. I mean, one guy I worked with was a nuclear scientist, and he was eating out of the trash, living on the bark floor. Wow. One had 4 letters at an Ivy League school, was MISCA, the MISCA chapter. And I realized some of these people are coming from walks of life that you just scratch your head. So it was around Christmas time, and I took a report for the other team. We were two-man teams, and cops. Oh, I'm eating lunch, and you want to take a call and write the report? I always have at it, man. The civilian public doesn't understand how big a deal that is. That you're going to take paper for me. But I saw in the dispatch notes that it was ID fraud. The sister had been detained for no fare ticket on a BART train, and had given a fake name, her sister's name, and now the sister was on the hook for the no-show, the failure to appear, and the failure to pay the ticket. So I saw that it said something about drugs, and this was at the point that I was thinking, I can't be lazy. I have to again challenge myself. If I'm going to say I'm doing this work, I'm a hybrid officer now. I'm an outreach officer. I truly mean this stuff that I'm doing. I'm not doing it just for the patting on the back and the glory. Right. I'm going to take this call and see what's going on. I didn't want to, but I did. And taking more paper. So I called her, and she started through the conversation when I talked about her sister. After we got the circumstances out of the way, I called one of the detective friends of mine. I said, "Hey, dude, can you just look at the video footage of this, the camera?" It was all on camera from the fare evasion inspectors. I said, "Just kind of clear that case for her. There's some drug history here going on. I'm going to help her out with her sister." Because the more I talked about her sister, the more she started to cry about it. And I realized she was really more upset that she lost her sister. They had a horrible father, horrible childhood, abusive, drug using, and the sister, the suspect, kind of raised the victim like a father. And she said, "I miss my Sophie," is the name we used in the book, I believe. "I miss my Sophie." And Sophie had a 7-year-old boy, and she became a cliche, got into the drug crowd, self-medicating trauma, ended up doing a residential burg of her own mother's home, or stealing stuff. The mother threw her out. They had her child, raising the child. I learned in the jails that men lash out, women lash in. And when self-esteem is damaged, they fall into a cycle of guilt and shame that I'm not worthy. This is how human trafficking gets its foothold, because they feel that no one's going to marry me. I'm worthless. I'm a terrible mother. And to feel like a terrible mother is a pit that is almost impossible to pull someone out of. In her mind, she had abandoned her 7-year-old child. It was 6 months since she last talked to them. So I told the sister I had a lot of connections, and I was building a good rapport in the community. Like you say, walking off duty, I had a rule. I would tell them, cop hat on, cop hat off. And they knew if I said my cop hat's on, it's all business. If you're doing something, or if I got to arrest you, I got to arrest you, man. You got warrants I got to take you for, that's it. But if I tell you cop hat's off, pretty much don't care what you're doing. As long as it ain't egregious, I'm not here for that. I'm here to help. And they began to trust me because I stayed true to that. So I was walking around in the community, and one of the main drug dealer, I called him the kingpin in the book, because he would sit up on the steps of the library with his minions around him, his spotters, all holding their fentanyl, heroin, everything else. And drug users, hundreds of them, would come up one at a time, get high, pass out on the stairs, or flop around on the sidewalk from meth. And he used to watch me. And as bad as these people are, some of them no one wants to be a piece of crap.
Right.
Some of them want to feel like they're maybe there's something redeemable about me, something good about me.
Mhm.
And some of the worst characters would come up and want to help me. After a while, it was, hey, who are you looking for today, Hoff? Who are you looking for? And they would help me find them. So this guy came up to me and said, are you still looking for Sophie? I said, yeah. She has a 7-year-old little boy. This little boy is going to grow up without a mommy. If I don't find her, she's probably going to die out here. You know how it goes out here, man. And that hits them, just like in the jails. They understand little kids. You don't mess with little kids.
Right.
He said, I know where she is. He came up to me one day and said, I saw her, I talked to her, I told her you're cool, that you just want to talk to her.
Mhm.
And in about 5-10 minutes, she's going to be walking down that street, the sidewalk over there. It was in front of the ACT Theater. It's San Francisco, famous theater. And sure enough, there she came. And I recognized her right away. I contacted her, and over time, I built a rapport with her. I realized I had to build her self-esteem up. Built her self-esteem up that you're a mother, you're a mom. It's not too late. The little boy is only 7. He's not even going to remember most of the stuff. Eventually got her self-esteem enough that I got her on the phone with him. I actually got pictures of it, of reuniting with her little boy on the phone.
Nice.
She told me, I asked her, what does he like to do? Oh, he loves sharks. He loves Shark Week. So I bought a shark off of Amazon, and we had her write a note on the shark, and I mailed it to him, made it from her.
Yep.
He slept with that thing every night. And then I showed her the picture. I said, look at this. He sleeps with it every night because it came from mommy. He does want you. He does need you. That was it. Next thing I know, she went and got, they call it an Obama phone, but it's a program from before Obama where they get the free phones.
Yep.
She got one of the phones. I made an appointment. She followed through with the appointment without any pushing from me for her Suboxone. She got clean, sober, was applying for jobs at Target. She used to be a restaurant manager before she fell into dope, and was filing for custody for her little boy back last time I talked to her. Would talk to him every night, the two of them on the phone together.
Nice.
And I realized that's just one. And now I have a whole community that's involved. So at first it felt overwhelming. But look at all the work that was done by everyone else, including a drug dealer.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for these people out, because other people would tell me where they saw her, who to talk to, that it perpetuates itself. The community will help itself. So if one person can do all this, what could maybe 10, 20 cops out there, or if you got social workers to buy in enough, to do the same thing?
Right.
And that's how it all happened. More cases after that.
Yeah. That was a good story. That's one that resonated with me. I was like, yes, that's one, at least for the closure of the book, it has a happy ending. Yeah, it's good. You see how it starts, and then you get to the conclusion. And the way it starts, if you just look at it at face value, you would have no idea it's going to whittle its way down to have a positive impact and a good conclusion, just the way it did. I know you've got tons of experiences and I'm pretty sure. I know you have so many that you couldn't put them all in the book.
I didn't know. That was the hardest part about writing. Gotta cut this. No, not that one. Nope. Gotta cut it. No. But that one is, it was just 89-year-old ballerina who's danced in the Sydney Ballet from a daughter of a famous artist, the nuclear scientist. I mean, just story after story of these people and these lives that no one will ever know.
Yeah.
Tim Blevins, if you it's called The Regulators, I believe is the name of the documentary. If you should watch it. Tim Blevins, I write about in the book, one of the most amazing voices I have ever heard. It was haunting to hear him. People thought it was someone's boombox. No one knew that it was little Tim all hunched over in that walker. And it was women and drugs is what his manager said. And it just got the best of him. And this was a God-given talent. This man had traveled the world, people paying top dollar to listen to his voice. And now he's in a BART station in a walker with a busted up hip, addicted to opiates for the pain. You can still see him on stage on YouTube. And that's just Tim is famous. And I thought, well, what about the ones who are not famous?
Yeah.
What about the housewives, which I've met? What about the guys who hurt their back working construction, 3 jobs to pay the rent for their family and are now addicted to painkillers? You would see them in their work vests at nighttime, passed out in the street. And I'm thinking, man, this guy's not famous, so no one's even going to know nothing about his pain or his existence. Who's helping them? Who do you call? And that's what the families would tell me. Every family said the same thing. We had no one to call. Your kid is homeless. And when you have a kid, when they hit 18, all of a sudden they're not your child anymore. All of a sudden HIPAA kicks in. So diseases like the kid I got back to Texas, schizophrenia doesn't manifest until your late 20s, sometimes early 30s. But now your child is an adult. And I'm still in retirement getting people calling me about this same pattern. My child is running around California. He's out of his mind. He's living on the streets. He had a job. He had a family. We don't know what to do. Who do we call? There is no one. There's nothing you can do. And if you try to talk to the medical field, if they get put in the hospital, sorry, HIPAA. Well, can you put him in a program? No, he doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
He's an adult. He's allowed to be crazy and on the streets.
Yep.
And this is what we see on the news. This is the way life is right now.
I believe that's everywhere. Not too many experiences or situations I can discuss freely while we're live on this platform. But yes, I've seen quite often where individual, either you don't get the information that's needed to move to the next step because you're working with a healthcare facility where HIPAA, and I'm like, it's frustrating because you can do something, but you cannot do anything because you don't have the right paperwork, you don't have the right information. Or like you said, again, they're at the age where, okay, to alleviate this problem, this temporary problem, they can go for what we call a 201, sign themselves in at the hospital, get an evaluation. If they go down there and they see the doctor and they're no longer technically not with us, not in our custody, but not with us to be there to kind of nudge them along, then they can immediately sign themselves out and starts right back over.
And you know what the insidious part of HIPAA is? I read HIPAA, and it was taught to me. My wife is very experienced in it. It was written for the insurance companies to allow them to share information with healthcare providers. Somehow it turned into the opposite, and it's like, a shield. No, HIPAA. But what that is that's not law that they're following. That's company policies that make them so restrictive because everybody's afraid of being sued. And like I was telling these case managers who refuse to help me, refuse to talk to the families, who's going to sue me? The heroin addict because I told his mom where he's at when he's dying on the street? He's going to sue me for telling mom this is ridiculous. We need to do something. So California does have AB 1424 was a law that allows families to share information with anyone, medical information, but it's not reciprocal. The institutions just drag their heels. They won't even tell you if somebody's there. I called once and I said, hey, can you just tell me if this guy wanted to go on a detox? He said he was on the way there. Can you just tell me if he made it? I just want to make sure he's alive. We can't tell you that. HIPAA.
Yeah.
Wait, you're not reading out of a chart. I'm just asking if he made it.
Yeah, I know. And you make the phone call, you're speaking face to face, and they ask all the questions. You check, okay, what's the name, date of birth, what's the situation, why'd you bring them, what date did they come, blah blah, XYZ, and then you get down to the nitty gritty of it, and like we can't disclose any of that information unless you have, or they get to that last question. My favorite is, do you have a warrant?
Yeah. Well, they're watching too much NYPD Blue, and they're like, "Yeah, you got a warrant for that?" I'll just ask it, verify that this address is still current. That's all. I'm not asking for their medical records. Yeah, and that's the problem, and that's why I think that to fix the problem, the resolution to homelessness, mental illness, and addiction is simple. It's actually easy. The problem is ideologies get in the way. People can't get out of their own way. Far left, far right, and if the systems would integrate and work as a multidisciplinary team and would share information, especially with law enforcement, what I did could be repeated. But getting that buy-in, either they hate cops. One of our sergeants walked into, or San Francisco PD sergeant, walked into one of the shelters. They threw him out. They screamed, "How dare you come in here with a gun on your head? You need to make an appointment. We don't let law enforcement in here." It was I got yelled at for at one of the meetings, that $6 million program to get the homeless off the streets. And when I told them I discovered a serial rapist who was attacking the women, he was giving them what's called hot shots, and they'd wake up in the back of a van. He'd been to prison for it and everything. He was a true serial rapist. He had 12 to 20 girls. And when I tried to warn them, tell your kids out there, these young girls, that don't do dope with this dude. Stay away from him. They stopped the meeting and yelled at me because I said rape, and then I said the word girl. And it was too demeaning. And the word rape could trigger people in the room. These are professionals. These are lawyers and counselors and doctors. And the whole conversation went off the rails from let's protect these people from a serial rapist to how dare you use offensive language. So
it's amazing. I know.
And now try getting everybody to work together and share HIPAA information. That's why what I did I was on my own for the most part. I had a small group of people who helped me, and without their help, I couldn't have done the work. But it was very small. There was only a few of us.
Gotcha. Well, again, I commend you. And for those of you who are jumping on, book right here, What Doesn't Kill You, ladies and gentlemen, written by Eric Hofstein. He's right here. It's available on Amazon. It's a great book. He shares the experiences that he has and the experiences dealing with addiction and homeless people, and getting them either on the right track, helping them, aiding them, assisting them, reuniting families. So many different wonderful stories are in this book. And like he said, he couldn't jam pack all of them in there. So there's a select few that are in there, and they do resonate. But before I'm going to jump to a quick break here, and we're going to come right back. I got one more question, one more thing that resonated with me, and I'm going to ask that question as soon as we come back. Here's Sergeant Be Safe right now. Stand by.
Your Honor, we have undeniable evidence that Chance Wilder attempted to hack into multiple bank accounts and steal money. We request the maximum penalty.
That's right, Your Honor. Chance Wilder is a menace to society, and we must put an end to his hacking shenanigans.
Objection, Your Honor. My client is innocent until proven guilty. We believe there's been a misunderstanding. Chance Wilder is a misunderstood genius, not a criminal.
Order in the court. Let's hear the defense's case.
Your Honor, I present to you Chance Wilder's latest creation, the Hacker Helper 3000. This incredible software was designed to protect innocent people from cyber threats. Chance's intentions were pure.
Objection, Your Honor. This is just a ploy to distract us from the real issues at hand.
Indeed, Your Honor. We even have evidence of Chance Wilder's hacking attempts. He's gone so far to have left a digital signature saying, "Catch me if you can."
Chance Wilder, I've heard both sides of the story. Hacking is illegal. Since you like to take wild chances, I sentence you to community service, where you use your skills for good, helping organizations protect themselves from cyber threats.
Oh man, no money and community service?
Shut up and take the deal.
Well, there's another good job done by our district attorney, just in case.
It was a team effort.
And there you go, folks. Justice was brought to Chance Wilder, but I'm pretty sure he'll be up to his shenanigans again. So tune in, and that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And there we have it. Let me get this off the screen here. We are back in the interview. Eric Hofstein. Eric, again, I appreciate you making yourself available. I have one more question that that's resonated with me. Again, I told you backstage before we got started that I've done a patrol. I've done Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied. I've done school. I was a school resource officer, and I was on the task force as an undercover. And I was on there. I had the most fun there. I learned a lot there, working drug work and working with CIs, and not working with the addicted or homeless community here in the location where I'm, the centralized location that was close to me. Dealing with that. Dealing with addiction and homelessness, there's one thing that I would not think of that is glaringly obvious, and that would be all the various types of skin diseases or other ailments that may go on within the community. How often, how prevalent is that, and how is that something that you had to help assist people with and deal with?
It's rampant. And it's something to be aware of when you're dealing with people. I always carried latex gloves. I don't know if your agency provides them.
Yes,
universal precautions are really important.
Mm-hmm.
Things like scabies, you get that from laying down in the dirt. There's MRSA that starts going around because people don't complete their treatment programs for the antibiotics. There's also biological reasons why your body goes through. I'm not a doctor, and I'm trying to be careful with my language. I don't want to say something some doctor is going to yell at you. He doesn't know what he's doing. But you go through physiological changes from using some of these drugs, and drugs like meth have red phosphorus in them. There's some bad stuff in that, and it damages the body, and you get infections, you get restricted blood flow, and that can lead to issues. Your immune system's not working well. And if you've ever seen a meth user where they kind of rocking side to side and grinding the jaw, and then opiate users where they're just sitting there picking. I had one girl, well, not allowed to say girl, a young woman who also left a child behind. That was one of my very sad cases. She would get the idea that there were beads stuck under her skin, and she would start clawing the flesh off her face to get the beads out, and that of course would lead to infection. I can show you something here. Now this guy, I've seen the news take pictures of him, and this was taken in the public. I can show you how bad some of this gets if you want. I have it on.
Absolutely, yes. Oh yeah, I can see now. Yeah, it's coming into focus. Yeah, with his legs and ankles
all the way down to the muscle tissue.
Yeah,
he was walking around like that for 1 year.
Wow.
When I left, an entire year like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how bad and what the human body can put up with and still keep going. I know I get sick and I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah,
just walking around like that every day. Like some kind of flesh-eating bacteria or something, or sometimes they get sepsis and infections that are so bad it kills the tissue, and that's just all the dead tissue that had to be taken out last time he was in the hospital.
Wow.
So it's bad. And then you have the parasites. You have sometimes you'd see lice so big you could see it from a distance. Fat lice just crawling all over them. It's a horrible existence for a lot of these people, and especially if they don't have the mental health to understand self-care. That's usually the first thing that goes with drug use, is that self-care.
Gotcha.
And that's what I tried to address. That's the first stage of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, was safety. Let's make your body safe and you physically safe. First stage.
Gotcha. Hey, thank you for sharing that. We had a wonderful interview here, and thank you for sharing pieces of your book. I didn't want to give away too much information in the book. I feel like I believe I gave away too much already. It's a great book to read. It's good, interesting stories, and I commend you again for taking charge Oh, it's not an easy job to do. It's not an easy field to be in, and a lot of heartache and pain. Different avenue of law enforcement. It's not something that we normally hear and discuss on this show, on this platform. So again, I thank you for coming on here. Through the course of this conversation, there may have been a question I forgot to ask, or I may have jogged your memory and something that you want to share with us. Is there anything else that you would like to say? Right now, the floor is yours.
No, you did an audiobook, so think of it that way. No, it's not a problem. No, just one thing I want to tell if you have young cops, I still have the FTO in me, field training officer, used to be. Never compromise officer safety. And that Jekyll and Hyde, no matter how well you know somebody, what kind of rapport you have with them, always read the room, read the body language, and do not ever sacrifice officer safety for any of this type of outreach or trying to do something unusual that goes against policy and training.
Good bit of information. Yes, absolutely. Just like you said, the gentleman who was on his meds was shaking your hand was nice as can be. And we deal with individuals like that often where you don't know, you see them one time, they're compliant. You see them another time and you don't know if they're off their meds, if something bad happened, if they just something went off that day, and you let your guard down, and that's the day where they choose violence, and you have to act accordingly. It's better to already be mentally and physically prepared and be proactive as opposed to being reactive.
Absolutely.
Good points. Eric, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Definitely. Yes. Pick yourself up a copy, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Black and Blue. This is the podcast where we go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go live weekly with a first responder or a law enforcement individual, whether they're rookie season or retiree, and we talk about their trainings, experiences, and their publications, and we're going to continue to do so. August has been a tremendous month, and we're not done yet. We still have one more guest that's going to come on the show sometime next week. I'm not going to say who he is. Make sure you guys tune in, and make sure you guys give him the same amount of accolades and praise that we do with everyone that comes on the show. Get your questions ready. Make sure you tag, like, and share. We appreciate all of you. Stay safe. And make sure that you guys continue to watch the show. You guys continue to come with your questions. This is Coach Clee. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker, saying 10-4, over and out.
Here's my chance. No cameras, no security systems, nothing. I'm about to own this house.
Rob, you blind. We know you're in there.
Oh no! It's Be Safe.
The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands up.
I'm not coming out.
Okay, I'm sending in Kraken.
Release the Kraken.
Dance with my dogs in the nighttime.
Ah! Kraken bit me.
I tried to warn you.
We'll get you the proper medical attention, but you're going to have to surrender and come out with your hands up in that house that does not belong to you.
Hold on. I'm coming out.
Don't be all day. We'll send Kraken back in.
My leg hurts now, and I have to go back to jail.
Well, this is what happens when you illegally enter a property that does not belong to you, also known as burglary.
Ooh.
And there you have it. Rob, you blind, you're coming with me. Hopefully you learn to respect other people's property and not break into homes. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.